Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of the Malazan Empire. Sorry this is super late for the daily update, but I just spent hours and hours in a video conference that I didn't really want to be at, but that's just how things are these days. Anyway, we are back with the Malazans and the Letheri because we start Dust of Dreams today. And I've just read the prologue and the first two chapters, and I'll get you the next two chapters tomorrow. So I guess this will be a rather short one today. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's where we are. Let's get this started. Nothing works today. Cheers. All right, let's get this on the way. So we have a prologue, and the prologue goes through all kinds of places. Well, mostly places we haven't been before, the Elan Plain, and you folks who all have your maps know where that is. Anyway, point is we have different people that we kind of meet or meet again. And the first is a group of fleeing children that is that are fleeing the the group of children that are fleeing starvation and predation by all kinds of people, because apparently their home countries have been devastated through drought and other probably human or whatever destruction of the country over the usual things that we do to our planet when we fuck up and suddenly places become deserts. Chop down trees, put goats, give goats the right to eat whatever they want, and all the other stuff. So they are fleeing, and this seems to be a super tragic one. I feel the important bit there is the way it's described. That opening with Rot and Held and Badal, and we get the picture, but it's sort of through their minds, which is a rather limited kind of viewpoint, but it's also a very twisted one, which makes sense because those are children and they are living through an ongoing trauma. But it has also this poetic kind of way of looking at things when you describe things not with the words that we as readers would know from our language, but you have these insects that eat either living children or dead children. They call them leaves, and they speak about fathers, but those are just people who apparently kill and eat children because that's how things go there. And so there's obviously the girl Badal, and we're going to talk about her in the future a lot. But there's an important aspect there, and that is that the language there is a poetic language. That it is this very poetic, imaginary way of looking at the atrocities that are going on there. And I feel that's sort of what we can take away from that. And then we have another group that is Ka-chain Jamal, lots of them. Suddenly they can fly and have 4 eyes instead of just 2, if they are assassins. So we finally have met more than just two Ka-chain Jamal. We have met the however you call that city, state, colony, group, or whatever. Brood, maybe? Who knows? That our friends, that our Ka-chain Jamal, Gunf Mac, and Sak Churok that we met in Reaper's Gale belonged to. And we finally realize what the plan there was. And the plan is that they want to impose, or that their matron wants to impose a religious structure to change the way that the Ka-chain Jamal, apparently there are still living Ka-chain Jamal, which is sort of a surprise anyway, but we've kind of realized that before. But they want to get this religious structure with the shield, anvil, mortal sword, and destriant for human support or whatever And they have found a destriant that is this Elan woman. They need a shield anvil and a mortal sword, and we know that apparently a Red Mask's job was to find those, or maybe he was their mortal sword, or was supposed to be their mortal sword, and was just sent out to find a shield anvil. Who knows? But obviously he failed because he used the Kachain Chamal as weapons for his own crusade of vengeance against the Letheri. So yeah, it's how to say. So they are just sent out again. So we'll see where that goes. But we get like a lot of information on the Kachain Chamal. We see that apparently they are a rigidly, like, I don't want to say caste society, but like rigidly organized society where people are bred or changed for a specific task and so forth. We kind of probably got like a hint of that before when we knew that there are L hunters and there are matrons. Now we learned that there's also assassins, sentinels, and soldiers. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. Then we meet someone, or a group of someones. Well, we kind of know who it is, right? We know it is Icarium, and he's gone insane and has all these personalities in him that are Rotos and Taxilian and Breath, and we can kind of guess who those people are. At least some of them we've met before, and we know that they died when everyone's favorite world-destroying life stealer, Icarium, went into that portal. They all died at that point, so yeah, we'll see where that goes. But in general, that's just like the first stuff of the prologue just gives us these different things. And then we enter the actual story, the actual first book. And there we kind of reconnect with a lot of the people that we've met before. And, it's once again, this will be the last time we have to like reestablish where we are and who our players are, put them on the board, see what's going to happen and so forth. So basically, we are back with the Malazans, with Fiddler's Squad and so forth. And he's supposed to take a reading, and he doesn't like it, and shit's gonna hit the fan big time. Apparently. We're not there yet. At least I'm not. But yeah, we meet them, we see the usual like banter going on in the royal household now, with Tehol and Janath and Bug and Rocket and Bryce and all the others. But we don't exactly know what they're going to do in the nearer future. But still, the Malazans are in Letheras, and they are kind of bored and start getting restive. We can see that from like all the other dumb stuff that is sort of happening around that. But basically, there's not much like super deep going on so far. We just see that Grub and Sin are hanging out together, and there's something really, really interesting going on there that I have not yet figured out, and I'm reading it for the third time now. But still, I still haven't figured out Grub and Sin more, but Grub I haven't figured out yet. So yeah, there's that. What else is going on there? Apparently, and this is sort of where things are getting interesting. We learn that obviously Seren Pedak is pregnant with Tral Sengar's child, who still is the Knight of Shadows. And we once again come to that point where the question is that once you have imposed certain structures on power, on the world, on the universe, right? You have the whether it was the Hold, or now you have the Houses of the Dragons and so forth, the Houses of the Deck of Dragons. And those power structures need certain roles fulfilled. And the question there obviously is how much of that is just is the choice of anyone, and how much of that is just a necessity due to the power structure, and that people are chosen by those power structures and can't really actually make a choice. Like we know, obviously, we know that Charles Sengar did never choose to become the Knight of Shadow. He wasn't even asked. He just like became the Knight of Shadows at some point. I guess the point was when he decided to go and defend the throne, the first throne, though, which, things are weird, and we know that. But anyway, we also learned that unveiling the Deck of Dragons, which, that system of power in Letheras, which is the home of the Errant, who was obviously is an elder god of the whole set of gods, will force the Errant to do something, because he obviously is still the champion of this old, cruder system of power. And it's like, it's basically different worldviews going up against each other there. So that is sort of the setup there. It's like everyone is like heading towards a first like big fuck up, basically. We'll see how that will go in the next chapter, I assume, or maybe the chapter after, but we're getting close to that. I feel the more interesting stuff, and like early on, that we should talk about is, on the one hand, the Greyhelms, the Parish, which will be the big one. There's a lot goes on there with the Parish. Obviously, we start with their Destriant dying. We have the viewpoint of Tanakalion, he's kind of asking the same question that we debated last time around with the Redeemer and Itkovian, and whether, like, redemption, or in this case, the embrace of the Shield Anvil, is something that can come with judgment or not. And he decides that he has to choose, which, is a problem, because compassion and empathy should not be about judgment, first of all. But we'll see how that goes. But we also have that dire warning of the Destrian that they are betrayed by someone. We'll see who that will be. And we see that Tanakalion, the Shield Anvil, is playing a game there. For maybe the right reasons, with the right motivations, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing that will come of it, right? We'll see how that goes. But what I really wanted to look at is that meeting between the Parish and the Volcando on the beach. Because that's something that is obviously on the outside, first of all, it's super funny when you have that scene and we have that conversation, that meeting, and they are forced to drink all this weird stuff. And are told it's like the wine mixed with the blood of the 14th daughter, and the other one is like those flowers that are fertilized by the stillborn children, dead births. Oh, the dead births, right? The dead birth of the king, and all of that. And we obviously at the end we learn that that shit was just made up to fuck up with those barbarians. There's something in there that we will need to look at in the future even more. And those things are, on the one hand, how cultures interact with each other, and prejudices, and how they work. Because obviously both sides have prejudices, right? Both sides think of the other side as barbarians. Different types of barbarians. Like the Parish are these, military society, very unsophisticated and so forth. On the other hand, you have the Parish, you have the Volcando portrayed as hyper decadent or whatever. You could look at it from the perspective of the Parish, the way they see and this is like, I feel really well done once again. When you look at it, that on the approach, we get the perspective of Tanakalion mostly, looking at all the Volcando, and when they return, we get the perspective of the Volcando, and this goes into the idea of Orientalism for me, at least. It parallels that, because the way Tanakalion sees the Volcando is very much as these decadent, I don't want to say effeminate, but these decadent, hyper sophisticated, therefore treacherous and so forth people. And this is exactly when you look at how, for example, the Romans or the Greeks, even the Greeks up to a point, looked at what they termed the Persians. Obviously, the Persians is a lot of things, but mostly very different, dynasties and so forth. And when you go and watch a movie like 300 and like maybe don't, you see that portrayal of like other cultures in that way, like turn to like 11. And obviously, and this is the fun bit there, and is that when we see, on the other hand, when they leave and we have the conversation of the chancellor, first minister, whatever his name is, and the conquestor, we get their assessment that those other people are absolute primitive barbarians because they lack the subtleties of civilization and so forth. And that shows that these prejudices, or the way we look at civilizations at a first glance, or other cultures at a first glance, are usually very much our own view, informed by our own worldview, and far from the actual truth. Which, yeah, that's just how we as humanity work. And we do that. We should be aware of it because it leads to a lot of problems, a lot of misunderstandings, and other bad shit happening from there on out. So we see that. Also, I just wanted to point out that the idea with the with the chancellor or prime minister or whatever his name was, telling that story about the blood of the daughter and all of that, really reminded me once again of that Terry Pratchett novel of Jingo, when Vimes, at this point, is he commander, I think, already? Well, I don't know. When he gets offered a sheep's eyeball by this desert tribe, because that's what everyone tells each other them before, it's like they make you eat sheep's eyeballs, and he just like, no, this is just a game with when you try to fuck with us foreigners and play on our prejudices. So yeah, it just reminded me of that, and you remind me of something Discworld. I'm always happy. I may just be biased there and read that into too many things, because obviously we know that Stephen Erickson has said that he has not read Discworld, or had not read Discworld at the time when that whole stuff was like started. But the sentiment I feel is the same. It's like this idea that to deconstruct the fact that a lot of the things that we think, or that we like our urban myths or whatever that we make up about other cultures, are literally made up by us or by them, and are not the truth. Like it's all about expectations that we have from different cultures, and they usually come from a place of arrogance. We see someone, we see someone who doesn't look like us, and we ascribe all kinds of dumb shit, all kinds of like negative things to them. And seeing that deconstructed is obviously always a very real and good thing. All right. Also, the idea of certainty in the way that Tanakalion looks at Krukava, I feel bears some examination, because yes, the idea that we like of intransigence and of heroism, that argument that he makes there is rather like compelling from like what you might call realistic point of view. Like real life, human life is a messy thing. You have these two sides to everything. Like sheer brutal justice is not something to be admired when you meet it in real life. It just might look good in stories, but stories are obviously told to make to make a point, and what we in real life make out of that is a different thing. But then once again, and this is important, we all live in stories, and we had that like actually No, not even here. It was actually when I was rereading Light Brigade. But anyway, the point is, we all make up stories about our lives and see us in these kinds of narratives that make sense from like looking from hindsight. We order all the events, all our deeds, all our actions, all the stuff that happens to us. We order that into some kind of narrative because we as humans, we think in narratives, right? That's just the way we're wired. And once you have decided what form of narrative, what narrative mode your life follows, this can lead you to make specific decisions. If you see yourself as the hero, if you see yourself as the person who works, goes straight, is super honorable, and so forth, you will choose sometimes make very bad choices because of that. And the question then is that your personality? Are you a truly honorable person, or do you just want to be seen as an honorable person? And those are two different things. So we'll have to look more at the Tanakalion Krukava situation and how he thinks about things in the future. I'm looking forward to that, I can tell you that. All right, let's have us a look at the Sheikh. At Yedan Derek killing almost all the witches and warlocks to build a power base for his sister. And there's something interesting there going on there, because we have his point of view when he thinks, and we have this long scene when he starts thinking about all these important to him things about intelligence or lack of intelligence and dissembling, and how the not so intelligent masses will always put down the very intelligent people and so forth. And those are very, very treacherous thoughts. He may be in the right here because he used that to justify him killing all these people that threaten his sister's power base, and may ultimately threaten the survival of their people, the Sheikh, because they are all so entrenched in their power games, in their like internal struggles. And that's something that we obviously have seen before, that we have seen a lot of when that we currently see a lot, like when you look at how we as different countries deal with a global pandemic, right? And the way we do that really depends on what kind of structure we have. And like some groups are slower because they are slowed down by by the way their power is set up, and others are faster because they live in what you may call an authoritarian regime. And there's advantages to that and disadvantages to that. The difference there, I guess, is, and I don't want to go into politics here, but the difference there is that the ruling body of the witches and warlocks is not chosen as a democratic body, or does not embody the will of the Sheikh per se. They're just like an oligarchy of different people with already more power, and their self-interest is holding everyone back. Now, is killing all of them the solution? We'll see. It may have some very dire costs. We also see with Yedan Derek the problem that he just takes that on himself, and while he may be right, we don't know yet. The idea of making yourself the martyr for a cause is always highly problematic. It's highly suspect. The idea of I'll do it because it has to be done. It's rather me than anyone else, and I'll do good for everyone because of that. That's a very seductive narrative, talking about narratives, but it's also a very dangerous one. It's be very careful about that. Don't make yourself the martyr if you can't. If you can help it, that will, in 99% of all cases, this will just be how to say, you just do it for yourself and not for everyone else. And that's the problem. Is that the case with Yedan Derek? Who knows? I mean, we still don't know enough about the idea of who the Watch is and who Twilight is and so forth to understand all of these things completely. I just wanted to point out that even though the way it is described, with all these witches and warlocks being super unlikable, one person deciding to kill all of them to make things simple is, while seductive, maybe not maybe not the right cause for us as readers to take it. He's not an example to follow in that regard, I feel. You know, just saying that. But I still, that's our next like big group obviously to start with are the Shake, what will happen with them. And yeah, although it's also important to see that when we have the discussion, when they talk about like they need to evacuate the islands, and you have the two remaining witches, and they insist that it's only the Shake, because yes, even though you may be a downtrodden, half destroyed minority that has been like abused, discriminated against forever, that doesn't free you from also being racist assholes and saying no, it's only for us and not for anyone else. Just saying that can still be a thing because it's a human thing. You always only think about yourself, your group, your in-group, your tribe, your whatever. Tribe is like using tribe in the like loosest form you can ever use it, like a group basically. Anyway, so we'll see where that goes in the next couple of chapters. I'm interested. Now, before we stop all of this for today, let's look at parentage advice from everyone's favorite cynic. Which, as we all know, is obviously Udinas. Udinas talking with the humbled Silcha's Ruin. And I said that before, I do really, really like Silcha's Ruin as a character, because compared to the super distant, inhuman Anomander Rake, Silchas comes across as much more of a human. Like, he's pissed, he does irrational shit. I get him. Now, this is the thing why I have a lot of respect for him as a character, is like he got punched in the face brutally, and he's smart enough. He's smart enough and humble enough to realize that maybe staying in the ground of an Azaf for like maybe times have changed over the millennia he spent in the ground, and he's smart enough to do something about it or to accept that. That I feel makes him a very, very good character. Not very good character, not written as a good character, but just someone I have respect for, because even though we may think that we know how the world works, we still need to be, able to realize our mistakes and grow from them. And Silcha's Ruin has the potential to grow from that. And yeah, he talks with Udinas, and Udinas like, children need to make their own, like learn their own lessons and get their own scars, because even though we as parents may know better, look, I'm not have children, but I know that I certainly never listened to anything my parents told me and made a lot of dumb mistakes because of that. I still can't turn to a dragon, though. That's sad, really sad. But, apart from that, I've certainly made a lot of mistakes that I could have avoided if I had listened. But, that's never the same. Experience is what is important. Also, it's very much about trying out things. So yeah, we'll see that once again in that regard. Important, I feel, is the aspect of the Imas, the way they are described, the detail that Stephen Erickson uses to describe daily life in the Imas camp, how they cure hides, how they work on things, the I hate to use the word innocence, but it may just be an interesting aspect there. Who knows? But the way he describes all of those things, I guess it's once again the archaeologist coming through, but also once again the idea of not accepting sacrifices of others and the nature of how they would rather not, the the way they don't think in like the idea of sacrifice and trade in a way that other people think is, I feel, a very important one. The way of how they accept life as the mystery that it is. I'm not sure how I feel about that in general, because it sometimes borders on this idea of the primitive being better and this hatred for like sophistication. I don't think that's where it's going. It just sometimes borders on it for me in a way. So yeah, um, I feel those are sort of. I had more things, but then I kind of forgot. If I remember them tomorrow, I'll put them up tomorrow. Oh yeah, I just love the fact. Oh, that's an important one there. Ersto Hubbard and Pinnacel as the gods of beer and wine, god and goddess of beer and wine, respectively. I feel are important. There's an important aspect there once again on how gods are influenced by their like believers in a way when we see them like being these like absolute brutal alcoholics, drunks, and Bug explained that this is because this is how the use of their gifts, which will be beer and wine, how the use or abuse of those things has changed them in return. And I feel there's something in there. It's like how we think. There's on the one hand there's a lesson in there on how we as people, and we can, I feel in a way, look at the way the Letheri deal with stuff like alcohol as very similar to how we do that. There's certainly an aspect in there that we can look at, like on, I'm saying this drinking a beer, right? But still, to be aware of what this is, what alcohol can give or not give, and to treat it with a certain respect is something that I feel we can learn from there. I also love that point where it's like we at least drink is not outlawed because we don't want to be evil. I just love that bit. Anyway, at this point, because I don't want to be evil, I'll end it for today. I'll talk to you tomorrow about the next two chapters of Dust of Dreams and more, maybe smarter things. Anyway, until then, have a great Thursday night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Until then, cheers.